This is going to be ranking every U.S. state based on how fun it would be to be a sports fan there. I'm considering every single professional sport, including minor leagues, and also looking at the college teams there. I'm going to be looking at things like how many teams are in each state, how good are the teams, and even what's the game day atmosphere at each place like. Coming in at number 50, probably to no one's surprise, is Alaska. They've got a few minor league and semi-pro teams and a couple small colleges, but nothing really to write home about with this state. 49th is Wyoming, another state with no real professional teams. Do have some semi-pro teams, but they only have one D1 school, and even though they are pretty good at football and produce an NFL quarterback, that doesn't really make up for not having many teams. 48th is Montana. They only have a few minor league teams and only 2 Division I schools, but one of them has made the NCAA tournament the past few years, so that's good. 47th, New Hampshire, only 2 minor league teams, only 2 Division I schools. Their big thing is NASCAR, but I'm not a big NASCAR guy, so it doesn't appeal to me too much. 46th, Hawaii, not a lot to offer, but they made it this far because the Maui Invitational would be awesome. 45th is Vermont. They only have 1 Division I school and 1 minor league baseball team, but the Catamounts basketball team's pretty good, and since I'm a big basketball guy, I figured I'd give them a boost. 44th is Delaware. All they have professionally is a minor league baseball team and a G League basketball team, but they beat out Vermont because they have 2 Division I schools. 43rd is Maine. Only 1 Division I basketball team and 1 minor league team, but they made it this far because they have the Celtics G League team, which means you get to watch 7-6 sensation Taco Fall. 42, South Dakota, a minor league team and a G League team, 2 D1 schools, one of which produced a stud named Mike Dahm. 41, Idaho, have some minor league baseball, but made it this far because they have 3 D1 schools, including a great football program in Boise State. 40th is New Mexico. They have 2 really solid college basketball programs, and going to a game at the Pit would be incredible, but other than that, they don't have a whole lot to offer. 39th is Rhode Island. Got some minor league teams and a few D1 schools, but the main thing for them is they have 2 really good college basketball programs in Providence and Rhode Island. 38th is North Dakota. Don't have a ton to offer, but they do have some good college hockey, and they have an absolute powerhouse in FCS football in North Dakota State, who's won 8 of the last 9 national championships, so that'd be fun. 37th is Connecticut. Their big thing is UConn. Their women's basketball program is elite, and the men's program has a really solid history too, and they also have a WNBA team. 36 is Arkansas. Got some minor league teams and a handful of D1 schools. Big thing for them is the Razorbacks. They have a really solid basketball program, but football hasn't been great lately. 35th is Nebraska. Got a few minor league teams and 3 Division I schools. They've got a great college basketball program in Creighton, and although Nebraska football hasn't been great recently, they've been pretty solid historically. 34th is Mississippi, another state with some minor league baseball teams and a handful of Division I schools, the most notable of which are 2 SEC teams in Ole Miss and Mississippi State. 33 is West Virginia. Not a ton to offer in this state, but they do have some minor league baseball, 2 Division I schools in Marshall and West Virginia, and WVU is pretty much always good in basketball and football, and baseball's been good recently, so that carried them this far. 32 is Iowa. They've got a ton of minor league baseball teams, a G League basketball team, 4 really solid Division I schools, including a Big 10 and Big 12 program. So they got a really good variety, but just not having a big pro team, I couldn't put them any higher. 31 is Virginia, a great college sports state with 2 ACC teams, including the defending champ for men's basketball, but with no pro teams, I just couldn't put them any higher. 30th, this one hurts me because I'm in grad school at Clemson, but South Carolina. They obviously have a top-tier college football program, tons of other great D1 schools, some minor league baseball, minor league hockey, but I just couldn't put the state any higher because they don't have any big pro sports teams. 29th, for the exact same reason, is Alabama. Just gave them a boost over South Carolina because they have 2 top-tier programs in Auburn and Alabama, and Auburn's basketball and baseball teams have been really good lately too. 28th, the exact same reason, Kentucky. Put them above the other 2 because they have probably the second best basketball state and the Kentucky Derby, but it's just tough when you don't have any pro sports. 27th, Kansas, got a basketball powerhouse in KU, some other great programs, Wichita State, Kansas State, and they have an MLS team. 26, Nevada, got a great hockey team, new NFL team, WNBA team, 2 D1 schools, and the NBA Summer League. 25th is New Jersey. Have 2 solid D1 programs in the state with Rutgers and Seton Hall. Also have an NHL, MLS, and 2 NFL teams in the state. But honestly, none of these pro teams are very good, so it would not be fun to be a fan of them. 24th is Utah. Have an NBA and MLS team who are both pretty good. Also have some solid college programs like Utah, BYU, and Utah State. Just couldn't put them any higher because they don't have much of a presence with baseball and hockey. 23rd is Oregon. Very similar to Utah, have an NBA and MLS team who are both pretty solid. Gave them the edge over Utah though, just because I think they have better college programs with 2 Pac-12 teams in Oregon and Oregon State. 22 is Arizona. Have some solid college programs with Arizona and Arizona State, and they have a pro team in all 4 of the major pro sports, but I couldn't put them any higher because for the most part, all of their pro teams are pretty bad. 21, Oklahoma. Not a ton to offer, but the teams they do have are all good. Oklahoma football, basketball, softball, and Oklahoma State. 20th is Maryland. The Orioles are not great, but the state does technically have two NFL teams with the Ravens and Redskins, so they were carried this far by how good the Ravens are and how good the athletic program is at the University of Maryland. 19th is Michigan. Could be some controversy here, but just hear me out. Obviously, they have elite college football and basketball. There's no doubt about that. But right now, all of their pro sports teams are horrible, so it would not be enjoyable to be a fan of them. 18th is Minnesota. They've got a really solid D1 school with a great hockey program, tons of pro sports teams, NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, MLS, WNBA, and pretty much all of these teams are pretty good or at least respectable. 17th is Colorado. Very similar to Minnesota. They have representation in 5 major pro sports and have some really good college programs in the state. 16th, Washington. The Mariners aren't great, but they have an elite NFL franchise, MLS franchise, and college basketball program in Gonzaga. 15th is Illinois. They have 7 major pro sports teams, and although a lot of them aren't great right now, they have a phenomenal history, and all of them have great game day atmospheres and great fan bases. They also have some solid college programs in the state. 14th is Georgia. 4 major pro sports teams that are all at the very least pretty respectable, but the reason they were bumped up this high is because the University of Georgia football is amazing, have great atmosphere and a great team, and they have the Masters, which is the best golf tournament in the world. 13th is Indiana. Only a few major pro sports teams, but they deserve to be this high because of their rich racing history with the Indy 500, and I think they're the best basketball state with colleges like Indiana, Purdue, and Butler. 12th is Louisiana. This state has an amazing sports culture, an elite college football program that unfortunately beat my Clemson Tigers in the national championship this year, a great NFL team, an NBA team on the rise, but I just couldn't put the state any higher because they don't have many teams, only 2 major pro sports teams, and only 1 big D1 school. 11th, this is probably a shocker, but Massachusetts. Now, if this were just pro sports, they easily would have won because they have 4 amazing franchises, but since colleges were considered, it really drugged them down. Now, they do have some really good hockey programs, but they have pretty much nothing to offer in terms of basketball, football, and baseball, so I couldn't put the state any higher. 10th, another surprise, Ohio. Obviously great football with Ohio State, good basketball with Dayton, Xavier, and Cincy, but couldn't be any higher because most of their pro teams are so bad. I mean, their hockey and baseball teams are okay, but both NFL teams are a joke, and their NBA and MLS teams are bad too. 9th place is Tennessee. Got a great NHL franchise that's a constant playoff team, an NBA and NFL franchise who are both on the rise. Tons of great college sports. Tennessee football is usually solid. Memphis and Tennessee basketball and a lot of other small schools in the state are usually pretty good. They have the defending champ for baseball in Vanderbilt, and they have one of the most famous NASCAR tracks. 8th place, New York. Tons of great pro sports in the state, so I think it's pretty obvious why they made it this far, but I'm going to explain why they weren't any higher. We're getting down to the best of the best, and so I'm looking for states that have great pro and college sports, and New York only has 1 Power 5 school in Syracuse, and although they are pretty good at basketball, that alone wasn't enough to take them any higher. 7th is Florida. Tons and tons of both college and pro sports teams, so it'd be fun to have all those options to choose from, but I just couldn't put them any higher because even though they have so many teams, they really don't have that many that are elite. 6th place is Missouri. Their only weakness is college sports since they only have 1 Power 5 school in Missouri, but they have a D2 powerhouse in Northwest Missouri State who's good at a ton of sports, but the pro sports in this state are amazing. Defending champ for NFL and NHL. Also have 2 MLB teams, one of which has a somewhat recent World Series and the other's good every single year. This would be a great state to be a sports fan. 5th place is North Carolina. Tons of amazing college basketball in the state, especially the Duke-Carolina rivalry. That's what carried this state so far. Also have some good college football with App State, UNC's on the rise. Professionally, the Hornets and Panthers aren't great, but the Hurricanes have been really good recently. The state also has tons of minor league baseball and is home to a huge NASCAR culture. 4th place is Wisconsin. Not a ton of quantity in this state, but so much quality. An amazing NFL franchise, one of the best teams in the NBA, a great baseball team, solid college football with Wisconsin, and great college basketball with Marquette and Wisconsin. 3rd place is California. So many great college and pro teams. Obviously, way more teams than I can list. A lot of their teams are near the top of their league, but the reason I couldn't have them any higher is because compared to the other states that are left, the college programs in California aren't nearly as good. These top 2 were so tough, and I kept flipping them back and forth, so just know I could have gone either way here. Number 2 is Texas. Again, I don't have time to list every single team, but so many great pro sports franchises in this state. Tons of great college programs for football, basketball, and baseball, and high school football in Texas is unlike any other. It would be great to be a sports fan here. Number 1, Pennsylvania. The key word in this series is fun, and the atmosphere at sporting events in this state would be amazing. Most of their pro teams are almost always good, constant championship contenders in the NFL and NHL, an elite college basketball program, and the whiteout game at Penn State would be insane.